That person who ghosted you? They're not living their best life. In fact, what's really going on with them will probably shock you, and it might completely change how you see no contact forever. If you're here, chances are someone you cared about just vanished. Maybe they seem fine on social media. Maybe they're already talking to someone new. Or maybe they disappeared without a trace. But here's the truth. What you see isn't even close to what's actually happening inside their head. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on what really happens to someone with an avoidant attachment style during no contact. It's not what most people think. 1. I've never felt this way about anyone before. The visual for this is simple but powerful. 2 balloons. One balloon floats freely into the sky. This represents the honeymoon phase. The other balloon is tied down by a heavy brick. This represents reality. When an avoidant says, "I've never felt this way before," it can sound beautiful, even magical. And in the moment, they genuinely believe it. But here's what's actually happening. They're enjoying the thrill of closeness without the weight of real intimacy. In the beginning, nothing has been required of them yet. There's no real commitment, no vulnerability, no sacrifice, no pressure. And that's exactly why it feels so safe. That's the free-floating balloon. Untethered, drifting higher and higher, experiencing the rush of connection without risk. They feel open, they feel capable of love, and they believe the words they're saying. But the second reality enters the picture. The expectations, the emotional needs, the brick of genuine intimacy. Their fear kicks in. Suddenly, the balloon that once felt so free now feels tied down. What once felt safe now feels threatening, and their instinct is to pull away to reclaim their independence. This is why timing is everything. In those early stages, the feelings are real, but they exist in a bubble, a fantasy where no one is truly vulnerable yet. Once the relationship deepens and requires actual emotional risk, that's when their panic shows. So when you hear, "I've never felt this way about anyone before," understand this. It's not a promise of future closeness. It's a snapshot of how they feel while they're still floating. The moment the brick of intimacy weighs in, their instinct will be to run. That's why early declarations like this aren't signs of lasting love. They're signs you're still in the untethered balloon stage. The visual here is a shield covered in arrows. At first, this statement can sound self-aware, even vulnerable. But underneath, the meaning is much darker. I've already decided I'll hurt you, and I want you to take responsibility for staying anyway. This is where defensive pessimism comes in. Avoidants often protect themselves by lowering expectations from the start. If they assume the relationship will fail, then when it does, the blow won't feel as painful. The shield represents this mindset, a barrier built not only to keep others out, but to soften the impact of their own anticipated failure. Now look closer at the arrows stuck into the shield. Each arrow represents an attempt at closeness, affection, trust, vulnerability, or commitment. Every arrow is someone trying to connect with them. But instead of allowing these gestures to reach their heart, the avoidance shield blocks them all. And here's the hidden cost. The shield doesn't just block love from coming in. It also keeps their own real feelings trapped inside. Deep down, some avoidants even believe they're protecting you by staying distant. They convince themselves that keeping you at arm's length is kinder than letting you too close and then hurting you. But the trap is this. The more you try to break through their shield, the more you confirm their belief that relationships only bring pain. The arrows multiply, the shield grows stronger, and emotional closeness becomes nearly impossible. So when an avoidant says, "I'm just really bad at relationships," don't mistake it for humility or openness. It isn't a confession. It's a warning sign. What they're really telling you is, "My shield is already up. If you get too close, you'll be the one who gets hurt." 3. You deserve better than me. The visual here is a person standing in front of a trap door. Simple, but telling. When an avoidant says, "You deserve better than me," it often lands as something noble. It sounds like humility. It feels like they're being selfless, almost like they're sacrificing themselves for your good. But that's not what's happening. This phrase is rarely a true confession. More often, it's a carefully disguised exit strategy. Psychologists call this moral licensing. It's when people justify harmful behavior by framing it as something good or noble. In this case, the avoidant uses "you deserve better" as a shield. By saying it, they give themselves permission to leave the relationship without carrying the full weight of guilt. They make it seem like they're protecting you, while really protecting themselves. This is where the trapdoor metaphor comes in. On the surface, the avoidant looks like they're standing there, vulnerable and honest. But beneath their feet is a hidden escape hatch. By declaring "you deserve better," they pull the lever and vanish, all while leaving you questioning what just happened. And here's the cruel part. The trapdoor doesn't just remove them from the relationship. It leaves you confused, often blaming yourself. Because when someone says, "You deserve better," it plants doubt in your mind. You start to wonder, was I the one who chose to leave? Should I have fought harder? Did I give up too soon? Suddenly, the responsibility shifts onto you, when in reality, the decision was theirs all along. This is why the phrase is so tricky. It feels like care, but it's actually avoidance in disguise. It lets them exit without looking like the villain. It allows them to hold on to an image of themselves as the good guy, who did what was best for you. And meanwhile, you're left holding the emotional fallout, trying to make sense of a breakup that was framed as your choice, not theirs. The truth is, "You deserve better than me" is rarely about you at all. It's about them avoiding responsibility. It's about them needing a way out that doesn't expose their fear of closeness. It's about them controlling the story so they can leave with their self-image intact. So the next time you hear those words, don't get caught in the illusion. Remember the trapdoor. They're not offering you freedom. They're offering themselves an escape. 4. If I destroy this first, I'll never have to find out how much I needed it. The visual here is a glass heart and a knife. The heart represents the relationship itself, fragile, delicate, but deeply valuable. The knife represents the avoidant's instinctive reaction to emotional closeness, to cut, to sever, to protect themselves before intimacy becomes too real. To most people, the idea of needing someone is natural, even beautiful. But for an avoidant, it's terrifying. Depending on another person feels like losing control, like handing over the power to hurt them. And that level of vulnerability feels unbearable. So rather than risk discovering how deeply they could love or how badly they could be hurt, they take matters into their own hands. They break it first. They shatter the glass heart before it has the chance to break on its own. That's why avoidant exits often feel so sharp, even cold. To the outside, it looks sudden or ruthless, but in reality, it's calculated self-protection. It's not random. It's not impulsive. It's strategy. By ending the relationship themselves, they never have to face the terrifying possibility that they actually needed you more than they admitted. This ties into something called emotional annihilation. For the avoidant, the worst-case scenario isn't just losing you, it's losing themselves in the process of needing you. To them, relying on you feels like handing over their independence, their safety, even their identity. That fear is so strong that it often outweighs their genuine desire for closeness. So the knife comes out. They cut ties to stay in control. They convince themselves it's safer to destroy something precious than to risk discovering just how much they couldn't live without it. And because they act first, they get to walk away believing they were the ones in power, that they didn't lose anything because they chose the ending. But here's the heartbreaking truth. In protecting themselves from pain, they also protect themselves from love. They never give themselves the chance to see how strong, fulfilling, or healing real intimacy could be. They cut before they can know. leaving behind shards of something that might have grown into the very connection they secretly craved. So when you picture that glass heart and knife, remember this. It's not about you being unworthy or unlovable. It's about their fear of needing you more than they can handle. Breaking the heart is their way of staying safe, even if it means never knowing what they just lost. 5. I need you to believe I care even while I disappear. The visual for this one is 2 chairs. In the first chair, you sit fully present, open, engaged, waiting. In the second chair sits the avoidant, but unlike you, they're not fully there anymore. They're fading, halfway gone, leaving behind only an outline of themselves. This is classic avoidant behavior. They rarely leave all at once. Instead, they fade out slowly, carefully. They leave just enough presence behind to keep you questioning yourself. A short text here, a casual check-in there, a glance, a smile, a half-finished sentence. Just enough crumbs to make you wonder, are they really pulling away? Or am I imagining things? That's the trap. This slow fade creates a kind of emotional gaslighting. You start doubting your instincts. You second-guess your own feelings. You tell yourself maybe they're busy, maybe they're stressed, maybe you're just overthinking. And that uncertainty is exactly what allows the avoidant to maintain control. So why do they do this? At the core, avoidants are terrified of abandonment. The idea of being fully seen, fully vulnerable, and then rejected is unbearable. To avoid that pain, they flip the script. They abandon first. But here's the catch. They don't do it completely. By leaving a small piece of themselves behind, they convince both you and themselves that they never really left at all. This way, they get to disappear emotionally without carrying the full weight of guilt. They protect themselves from shame while keeping you tied to the illusion of closeness. Technically, they can still say, "I'm here," but emotionally, they've already exited. The effect, however, is cruel, because from your chair you're still waiting, still believing, still hoping. You're reaching out to someone who looks like they're across from you, but in reality, they're already halfway out the door. You end up holding space for a relationship that only exists in fragments, and that's the heartbreak of this dynamic. Avoidants don't just leave. They leave slowly enough to keep you questioning, to keep you tied, to keep you believing in something that's no longer real. They don't fully vanish, but they're never fully present either. It's a ghost-like presence, just enough to stop you from walking away, while they quietly retreat into their own safe zone. So when you picture the 2 chairs, remember this. One is occupied by someone ready for connection, while the other is occupied by someone who's already fading. You're not imagining their absence. You're just being asked to mistake fragments for presence.